We are live. Beautiful. Is anyone here? We'll find out in a second, hopefully. Hello. No one said hi in the chat today.
No, everyone's gone, yeah, this is not for me.
Everyone's hiding today. Although, wow.
I think a couple of people
it's
Please say something in the chat to make us feel more assured.
Like we got some people. Just no one, not even Tash. Not even Tash saying hi. Well, for the few people that are here, if you're listening or watching. There we go.
Thank God for
that. Hanley will like this one, I'm sure.
Also, by the way, Hanley apologized profusely because she thought the podcast started at 9 a.m. and not 9:30, and she shouted at me last week because it was an ungodly hour. And then I told her that she was wrong and it had been 9:30 the entire time that it's been a thing.
Hanley saying it's an ungodly hour is a joke. So this week, although the title is Does My Business Work For Me? We're going to be having a look at our margins and numbers and kind of how we go about picking things up and what we're thinking when we're going through business, basically. How our margins work out, how everything works out, to be honest with you. I don't even know how to explain it really, but just kind of talking over our views and perspective on how we run things and how that's panning out for us so far, to be honest with you. Especially in comparison to last year, actually, would be interesting, which I didn't even think of till now. I didn't really, well, we did it at the start, didn't we? Or our first podcast. So I guess they have an idea if they have watched before. But it's good to see everyone's here now. It will just flood in. I guess the delay. That was a delay.
Ready.
But lovely to see everyone's here. So I don't know if do you want to actually, I know we said the opposite way around to start with by going big number first, then little number. But I don't know if you want to go little number first and then big number in terms of little number, in terms of how we pick stuff up and then how that ends up working out for us.
I think that's a better way around, actually. Yeah.
Because it reveals like the actual results of thinking like that.
I just want to put a little bit of a thing in here, by the way, that my numbers are going to be on show for everybody to see. So I'd like a little bit of like, I'm very nervous like, throwing some numbers out here because it's very sort of like revealing about everything. And some people might think they're great and some people might think they're not good. But, I just wanted to make sure that nobody feels bad or good at the same time. It's my journey and we're working on it. And I'm being quite open about it, if you know what I mean. And it's a weird thing for me to be like, oh, here's my numbers and look how good or bad I am. Because I don't know. I don't have any sort of base point against anybody else, right?
I mean, I'd say everyone feel free to bully him, but that's...
I mean, I guess so. Don't worry.
To be fair, if everyone... I'd like to know if everyone is making substantially more money, because then I feel like maybe we should figure something out here.
Maybe we're doing it wrong.
Because otherwise, if you're like, oh, these are my numbers, and they're like, huh? Oh, I was like that to you when you first told me your numbers to be there.
I got ruined, by the way, in that chat for a little bit, but I think it's my added expenses that like the profit margins are good, and we'll talk about it again in bigger numbers after. But if you want to start with what you were thinking, and then we'll
okay.
I'll add
so
them.
I kind of wanted to I can't remember what triggered this the other day. It was probably us talking about what you pick up and how much you pay for it versus how much I pick up and kind of what we look for. And it's my style is quite different to a lot of people in the space in terms of the flips you're looking for. And obviously like most people have like a minimum flip, right? Depending on what your minimum metric is in terms of profit you want to hit, you have a different amount that you need to sell something for to make it make sense. Like if you want a £15 profit, you can't sell something for £15 on eBay and it be £15 profit. You're realistically going to have to be 20 or above. And if you are 20 or above, paying on the lower end to make it work still. So in my head, for me, I don't really have a profit metric. I could say it was 15 and I think it works out that it's minimum 15. But I can't. I think it was higher. At one point, it was 20 like a while ago when I checked. But I don't. It probably is around that still. It's probably higher than that. I'd have to work it out. But if people don't know, I'm not the best at tracking my numbers. It's not my thing. So the fact I'm doing this topic is quite funny. But in my head, the thing I want to go, the minimum I go for is 5 into 20. that will work out probably just under 15. I'm like, it would work out under 15 for sure, but obviously that's a rarer thing. I kind of have shifted for it being 5 into like 25, hopefully, or 6 into 24 sometimes. My general go-to, or previously where I started, was 1 into 4. And I'd be interesting to see what everyone else's like minimum flips are, what their minimum metric they go by is when they're looking at an item or something they're going to sell on eBay. Because mine used to be 1 into 4, and I've adapted that as I kind of went along to make it make sense for what I want it to do. I don't know what yours is, what your minimum one is.
So mine used to be, rolling it back, I used to be happy with like 5 into 15, 5 into 20. Like I even did double ups, right? Like once you get past the £20 mark, I was quite happy to do double ups, like 20 into 40. But that, as we've grown and the understanding has sort of like clicked with the, like the fees and the postage side of everything, it's gone into 15 minimum is kind of mine as well. I think we're on very similar sort of like ways of doing it there. But for me, so Tasha's want to say this as well, but if there was something for £1 and it sold for 18, that would give you roughly your £15 minimum. But I still turn my nose up at those all day long because I want the average sale price to be like 30-ish. That's so it kind of.
I have a bias, but the £20 mark hurts me. Like it doesn't matter what I pay, and obviously there's plenty of models that it makes sense. Like you can run a business easily £1 into £15. Like it makes perfect sense. I don't know what gripe I have with the £20 mark, but if I pick up an item that I didn't know it was flawed or ends up being worth less than I thought, it pains me to put it down at like 15. I'm like, oh yeah. And overall, like a few of those isn't going to make a difference to your minimum profit margin. And if you want to increase your what you're able to pick up and also make more money, if you can pick up 1 into 15s all the time and add that to your pot, I mean, realistically, there's not too much harm in it. I think the only thing to be said for it is you're putting in the same amount of effort for less profit per item.
But it's just if you do like say you were doing 1 into 18s, right? That is £15 profit. So like you're even doing it for the same profit, but your cash flow would be better because you would just be able to buy 20 items for £20 if you were doing it. So actually, ultimately, you would be doing the same amount of work for the same amount of profit, but it would just look a little differently.
Yeah, I guess you'd be playing on your minimum profit though. But like for the most part, like I said, I try and go higher, but you'd be playing on your minimum profit bracket a lot. Like it would, and the cash flow would be unreal. You'd be laughing. But I don't know what gripe I have with it, except for it's just a marker I have in my head to make sure I play by, basically. And then off of that, what have you progressed to now? Because I started at 1 into 4, and that's still kind of my in my unknown territories. I stick with that, but mine has morphed into 1 into 3 for the most part, and mine is 1 into 3. So my minimum 1 into 3 is 10 into 30, and then after that, I have no limit as to 1 into 3. Like it stops. The higher I get, the more it makes sense to me, because obviously the larger the flip you do. So I am someone who will pay frequently like 25 into 75, 30 into 90, 40 into 120, 50 into 150, and stuff like that. And even like I've done what I did. What's the biggest one I probably did recently? I did 150 for hopefully 450, which I'm actually getting that jacket fixed today, which is finally happening because it's just been sitting around. And then I've done 80 or 90. I can't remember what the shop was. I think it was 80. I did 80 into 270 or something like that. So I am very happy to frivolously spend up to make the margins. Although that is a cash flow hurter significantly, like if you can't deal with it. but I'm lucky till this point. I've built up a pretty big bankroll to fall back on, and we'll go over like the bigger numbers later. But that's held me in good stead because I think this is a reasonably new model to me. I've slowly progressed into spending more money, and I think right now it's probably not actually catching up. Like I think this literally the start of this year I've spent far more money than I ever have, and I'm hoping that the results will pay off as we go along. But right now, I'd say I'm still working on a older model of mine, which is still spending up. Like I'm still happy to spend up, but it's not as frequent. And now I'm coming across more things I can frequently spend up on. But I need to wait for the rewards of that to kind of catch up. It's like starting Vinted, right? Like if you go from working at the car boots to if you go from buying at the car boot to sourcing on Vinted, you're getting better items that probably sell for more. But it takes a little bit of time cash flow wise to kind of start making it make sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know has yours changed over time?
So mine's changed more recently just due to the volume that I'm trying to do, right, with the 20 a day. So when you said you were doing 10 into 30, I turned my nose up at it a little bit, right? But that's because you're getting probably about £3.50 to £4-ish in fees. I do free postage as well. And then you've got the cost of the item. So that's say £16 out of the 30. So you're probably getting, let's just round it down to like £13 like profit or whatever. So I used to turn my nose up a lot, and I used to say no, seven into 30 is like the lowest, like or the highest I would go, right? But as I've found that I need more items, I'm allowing my margin to be, now I'm still being pretty strict, and I'm not going to buy 40 items at 10 into 30. Unless obviously you're spreading it across against everything else as well. But in general, now I'm a little bit better at sort of taking. The only thing that I changed like is the 10 into 30. The higher ones, if I'm paying £25 for something, it needs to be 70-ish, like in return. So if I'm paying more money, I want more of a return. And then that only ever really changes when. If sell-through, like if you've got a 200% sell-through rate and you're going to make put 25 in and you're going to get 50 back or like £50 profit, then I'm happy to do those if it's very quickly. But even then, sometimes like you could just have a size that isn't as good as others, and it still might take a little bit of time. And I think that because, like you said, we've built up enough of a bankroll that actually the speed in which we get the return doesn't define how much we can then purchase again, because we've already got the money to continue purchasing anyway. So when you're newer to it, you have to pay way more attention to it. But when you're a little bit further down the line, you can pay slightly less attention to the return on investment, just based on the fact that you should have constant turnover anyway, theoretically.
That's a good point, right? Is that mine has developed as well. I'm still avoidant of doubles. I don't know why. Like even if a good item comes along, like some people are super happy, like, oh, I'll sell this in a week for double whatever I paid for it.
Here's a question for you: when does double make sense, right? Because at some point, because I was talking to Austin from the Luxury Pickers about this, and I was like, if you drop 100 grand to make 100 grand, that's a great double, right? But if you dropped a grand to make a grand, is that a good double? Or 100 to 200, is that a good double? Like, where does the double not make sense?
To me, it would have to be super significant. Like I feel like I'm getting towards the £500 mark to feel like I want to double. Even though you could say the whole Sweaty Betty deal, I'm now happy to double because I want it.
I guess I want it all the time, right?
But in terms of like an actual flip that I'd pick up, it would have to be pretty significant to me.
So you're 1 into 3, right? That sort of ends up being closer to a double anyway after fees and stuff, right? So if you do like 30 into 90, once you've dealt with fees, postage, and the cost of goods, that ends up being closer to a double, like a £60. No, yeah. Okay. How close would that would be closer to a double, right? Once you've finished with all of it.
What, 30 into 90?
Yeah. Would that be close?
I'll do the math for you.
You got your 13% fees on eBay, plus you do 2.2. So that would end up being 15% in fees. Do you do free postage?
Yeah, but I put postage on top in the price, so
so that kind of negates it a little bit, and then you've got cost of goods, and then you've got, I mean, if you really wanted to go deep into it, like Simon there, where you're saying, do you consider VAT in your model as well? You could say, well, actually, I'm going to get 7.5% in VAT, then I'm going to get taxed on it as well. Like by the time you've done all of that, you're probably closer to double anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, if you do a double up, then it becomes way less than a double up, if you know what I mean. So it makes sense.
7.5, because 7.5% VAT, so basically like 20.79.5. 90 times 0.795. So that takes me down to 71.55 without cost of goods, which still is a decent bit over a double, to be fair.
Yeah, so it's actually, it's higher. It's a lot higher than, that's not too bad actually. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so 41.55 profit.
You'd have to, for me, if I'm doing a double up, it has to be like 200 into 400, and obviously the fees are going to be higher on that. But then again, I would also take into consideration sell-through rate massively on something.
Yeah, I was about to say, it also has to be a double that like will make it make sense fast. Like so with the Laura Piana thing that I got, that I paid 150 for, that's still a triple to me. So I feel comfortable doing that. But I would have looked at that and been like, how fast would this actually sell? Would it make sense generally? But yeah, mine's also adapted as the 1 into 3 has come from making relationships. Like I know relationships are generally meant to make you make more money a lot of the time in terms of maybe profit per item. That's how a lot of people see it. But to me, if I wanted to pick up more items, I needed to do stuff that worked for me and them. And with the charity shops around me, I basically, anyone that treats me well and I have a relationship with, I'm happy to do 1 into 3 with as much as possible. And how my relationships generally work is I will wait for something to be culled, so it's been out through their cycle, and then I'll offer them my price, and they can say yes or no. And I always try and be, and if they ask me or want an idea of how much I'll offer them, I will tell them I'll do a third of market, which of what I can get, and that seems to be a good balancing between what they've got it up for and what I need it for, and it's not so much of a discount that it hurts them to look at every single time, because a lot of it, like I've got stuff priced up around me. Like a lot of people have stuff priced high. So if I was offering a quarter, it would feel so much worse to them, because not only do they might have it overpriced for what I could sell it for, I then have to offer them a quarter of what I could sell it for, which is like, for example, the other day, some nudie jeans, right? Someone had them priced at 52 in their shop, and I was like, this is gonna hurt, but I can do 10 because I can get about 30 for them. And she was like, really? I'm like, yes. I promise you that is what I can get, and that's what I have to do. So if I had to do a quarter instead, if I had to do £7.50 from 52, it feels even more painful. The 10 mark normally feels all right for people, and I normally end up getting a lot of 10 into 30s. But if you do a quarter, it hurts. And it's massively, massively helped me pick up better quality and more, like a lot more, which has been really beneficial to me. So I'm happy with that. I know one did post it. I'll do it. So Shelterini says, I'll do a double flip for 25 within a week. So 25 into 50. Double makes sense when you get money back next day.
Yeah.
That
makes sense all day long. Like,
yeah, but do you know what's funny? I
guarantee it, right?
I don't know if it's just stubbornness, but I still find that painful. I don't know why.
It might change as well with the VAT stuff. Like, I don't know if Andrew's VAT or not, but when you hit VAT, I think the margins in which you can accept slightly adjust anyway in general, because obviously you've got to take on account those as well as your tax and everything else that you're going to lose off it. Now, obviously, if you sell infinitely more, like it's fine. I could do 10 into 30 100 times a day, and I could run a perfectly fine business, and it would be great, right? Even with the tax, right? But if you're doing 10 a day and you're selling 10 into 30, then it slowly sort of diminishes the level or whatever, then you can do, or at least a double up as well, like in those scenarios. If you're doubling up and you're only doing it 10 times a day, that's not fantastic. But again, if you do it 100 times a day,
there's people that, like, if you look at the hypebeast sellers, like their profit margin is like completely flipped on us. They're like happy to pay like 70 quid to make 30 or 40.
I see a lot.
Like a lot of the hypebeast shoe sellers and like the people that sell North Faces, and normally it's because these things sell faster. I think they're generally happy with that. But
they don't get the fees, so a lot of them are doing Vinted flips.
That's what I think. So this is what Chelsea just said. It's only painful if you have fees taking out the double up. You get money back plus profit. It is a completely different world, and you're going to see how much fees I've paid now. Obviously, since the start of the year, since it's come back in. But if you are on Vinted, and this isn't the massive thing for Vinted, like I've lost out on this money that I'm not going to get back. If I was on Vinted, I'd have a lot more money, basically.
It was super interesting, actually. I was in a call with Crystal on the Zoom call, and it was just like an open chat that we were having. And we were talking about pickups that we were getting via sniping on Vinted. And she was happy to pay like £5 more. Like, it's no secret that Plant Hunter, the sea salt coat, does really well, probably about 60 to 70, depending on size, all this good stuff, right? And she was willing to pay £5 more than I was willing to pay, but she doesn't have to pay for the fees, whereas I do. And then she doesn't do VAT, which I do. So it's all about if you're on a private account on eBay and a private account on Vinted, and you're just selling like that, and you haven't been forced by eBay to make a business account, you can adjust your. But I also said to her in that conversation is like, when those fees do come on board and maybe eBay forces you to, and you end up having to be on a business account or whatever, are you going to have to change your like approach in terms of how much you can spend? Now, obviously, I've already changed my approach, so I know my approach. And I said to her, it might be not difficult, but it's just something that you have to think about because you're sniping on Vinted and it's quite quick. You just have to remember that you can't pay that. Now, you might think it'll sell on Vinted and you can take the no fees then, but realistically, if you're predominantly eBay like I am, I have to constantly think about the fact that fees are going to be applied to this, and that.
I mean, do you actually think? Like, I don't know if, because you're saying this, and I'm thinking, I just picked a margin that I knew would be safe enough for almost everything, right? Like when I first started, I picked 1 into 4 because I'm like, this just accounts for everything. And the discussion I had, and something Josh said to me when we were talking about numbers and stuff like that, is how do you, without tracking your cost of goods and your numbers, how do you know what you can afford to give away? Actually, I forgot 2.2% in my calculations as well. I just from like general understanding of how much of a margin it is, I'm like, I can afford a lot within this without it becoming too much of an issue. Yes, my business will like start performing worse at some point, like too bad, but generally I'm very comfortable in the fact that I can afford the things I'm doing. And I think once you start getting employees or excess expenses in, then you should probably keep it on that track. You should keep a track anyway. But
has your movement into the new unit changed your thought to potentially having to, because it's a little bit more expensive, right? It's not crazy expensive, but there's an extra value than a cost that you weren't having in previous. So has that made you think maybe I need to change my margins in any way, or are you still happy? Because evidently you're going to make less money, right? Because you've got to pay out more money. So has that made you think, oh, actually, I need to maybe not 10 into 30, maybe 8 into 30? And that's obviously a minimal change, but if you're doing that multiple times, then obviously
the point that I'm going for is I've been like positioning to go up to 15 for quite a while. And I just need to sell more in my head. That's the approach I take, is not squeeze out more money from each item, because I think I've done that generally for quite a while. It's to increase because else it's just pointless, isn't it? Really.
Exactly. I've sort of with going from like 7 into 30 to 10 into 30 has ultimately it's decreased the margins, but I've also gone up by 5 listings a day. So theoretically, if you can just make the extra sales, you can just squeeze it out that way, and that does make sense.
Yeah. So Nick's asked, when you say £15 profit, does it account for all costs, storage, packaging, etc.? Blah 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 blah. I don't know. Does yours?
No. So for me, I mean, there are some very negligible costs, right? So if you buy like 1,500 bags or whatever, that you're like a medium-sized bag that like 99.9% of your stock's going to fit in, it costs what, like £85. But when you break it down, £85 into 1,500, it's like 1 or 2p like per bag. So per item, that's a very negligible cost. And then even if you were to say your £15 profit per item, say you sell 15 a day, and then my storage costs me 180. So if you say 15 a day, so if you times 15 by 30 for the month, and then took out £188, like that, it would probably be, I don't know the maths, but it would probably be like in the pence rather than the pounds.
So I'm doing the maths on mine. So for the last month, I've sold 265 items, right?
Yeah.
And my storage costs 150 for the moment.
Yeah.
So that's 56p an item. Yeah. So that's like, it's a significant-ish amount. And then I'm trying to think what else significant I pay for. Packaging, I barely pay for.
Like, I mean, you can really go into the weeds here and be like, oh, how far away is your postage shop? Like
petrol,
fuel. Like there's so many, and I think that's where you've got to really sort of. That's why £15 is the minimum. It's not the goal. Like 15 isn't the goal. It's the minimum, because at baseline, even on a £15 profit, if you say, for instance, it costs you £5 per item, like let's go overboard because it doesn't cost that. But if it costs you £5 an item, that's still £10 profit as a bare minimum after everything, and that's still pretty decent. I know people that know their exact profit margin per piece after tax, after VAT, and I'm not that organized.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if Hanley's still in here, she's got a spreadsheet of everything. Simon probably has everything sorted.
Yeah, Hanley told me all of her numbers once, and I was incredibly impressed. Not only because I basically did lots of maths after she was explaining to me, just because I wanted a base understanding of how far away she was, because I use Hanley as a beacon, right, of like where I want to be. Yeah, like a success metric, like that's where I want to be. I messaged the other day as a joke. I went, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. just she knows her shit, right? Like she just knows what she wants. She knows how she, like, do you know what I mean? So when you know these numbers and you can math it all out and you can work out how much that is in a year, like she's told me her profit per piece, and then I've times it off her rough numbers and stuff like that, and the numbers are incredible. And then you think to yourself, like, where am I at and where do I want to be, and how do I get to this? Because like I said before, I've tried to compare my business to Hanley's, and we do things in so many different ways. We do it in different categories. It's impossible. But I've got to be smart enough. I've got to be smart enough to go, well, she's doing it this way in this section of like her business. How do I implement similar things, but try and bring them over to what I do in the clothing sector or whatever? And then that's the mental game that I've got going on at the moment.
Yeah. Again, there's going to be a million ways to do it. And Xander's saying that you don't calculate cost of goods generally like this in most of it. And I don't think this is cost of goods. I think people are just asking where the £15 profit comes in, like if it's before or after everything. And I think it generally it's before. And I don't even have a £15 minimum profit metric. It's just generally kind of worked out like that from the parameters I've given myself in my head that I've just made up, to be honest with you. It's all just made up, and I decide what I want to do on any given day. Because
everything I've done for the last 3 years has been made up on the spot, and just kind of we one of our names for the podcast was going to be like winging it, because we've both very much done that. Like we've done it well, but in general, like we've not sat there and gone, like, this is where we're going to be, this is what we're going to do, this is the profit, this is how many we're like. We've just incrementally increased what we're doing. Just as the knowledge base is kicked in, the cash flows moved. Like this is literally us just going, let's work it out on the spot as we go.
You become less of a winger now. We're going to have a look at your spreadsheet, because I am firmly on the wing it side for the most part in everything I do in life, pretty much. Like I had an eBay event on Friday that Shell and Alma were my co-hosts, and Shell had everything planned out. She had cue cards, everything. I just had a topic, and then on the train there, I wrote some like keynotes on the way, and then I just sat and spoke for an hour because I just winged it as I kind of went, and I did it in school, all the same everywhere, and that's my mum saying, "Sure."
Can I just bring this one quickly? So Shell's Rooney said that she's done £28,335 and 72 pence compared to so basically, I'm gonna spoiler alert, that cash value there is roughly what my gross is so far this year. And I can tell you that the fees on that would be around just over £3,500. So that's how much you've saved, or 3,600 something. Well, according to my eBay,
I can tell you, it'll definitely be more than that.
Well, my fees this year. Oh no, actually, I'm looking at the wrong numbers. That's why. Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, it would be closer to £5,000. Sorry, £5,500. And my numbers aren't that high. I thought there were different numbers that I was looking at, but it's fine.
Yeah, but I think a lot of this helps. Like if you're in terms of you comparing where you're at to Hanley, a lot of it helps understand the growth you need and where you're at already, so you can kind of build towards that. And if you really, really want to do it, you can go completely backwards, right? You can go, I want to earn this much profit this year. And then you go, okay, how many items is that going to take? And how much profit do I need to make on all these items? And you can work all the way backwards to get a goal, which is like, I need to hit this many items per day at this profit margin, because this makes the most sense to hit my goal in the end. Whereas over here, I'm like, we have a general goal, we have a general idea, and we'll just start working towards it and see how it pans out.
So this year's goal was reverse engineered. Like I reverse engineered it completely. So I wanted to hit 200k this year, and then I reverse engineered that all the way down to the fact that I needed to sell £568 and I think it was 48p, and that was my sales like for the day every day. That is gross, obviously 200k gross, right? So you don't have to worry about fees on that, but £568 and 48 pence or whatever it was kind of where I needed to be. I can tell you right now, I'm nowhere near that. And I would imagine. So I'm still like, obviously I've gone up right from 15 to 20 a day. Hey,
you started late.
Yeah. So the 20 a day only started on January 1st. So, and obviously it takes a little bit of time to kick in. My average at the moment is around 15.5 parcels a day sales, which is still pretty decent. Can't complain. But I need to be up to 20 to really get that number. So I actually think by the end of this year, it'll probably be around anywhere between 160 and 180 is kind of where I think it would go. And that seemed like I've hit every target that I've ever created on this, like what I'm doing, right? But they've always been relatively simple targets to a degree. And then obviously this year, the end of last year, we did 113k for the year. And then I went, well, what's better than that? Like it's nearly double, right? So 200k would be like insane, right? Like I'd be super happy with that. So that's where I went, oh, let's just do that. and it's I'm hoping that like as it kicks in, it's going to start to really move, but it's just hard.
Shall we get into what this actually looks like then? So obviously we've talked a lot about our flips and how we run our business and blah blah blah, but how's it panned out for us this year so far? And mine's interesting because I'll say a few things, but do you want me to go first, or do you want you to go first?
It's up to you. Which one do you want?
I'll go first because I don't know. Again, I don't know if you've had yours worked out already, but
no, I would need a little bit of working out of mine. I mean, I've got some brief numbers, but I think it'd be good to have a calculator out and actually start like properly getting into it. If I know you've done it your side because you did it this morning, but I thought mine would be fun to.
I'll actually pull up. I was just going to say the number, but I'll pull up the eBay Facebook page.
Yeah.
Or Facebook page. The eBay Facebook page isn't going to help with anything, but I'll pull up my year to date, which would be interesting because it's probably updated since. So my year to date, I can't remember what I was on. Here we go. Present, share screen. Entire screen. Boom. So my year to date is 111,000, which I think has gone up. So obviously I think when we gave our numbers at the start, I think I gave my number from like the start of last year to the end of last year. And at the start of last year, I wasn't doing 10 a day, I think, till almost about now. So it's coming up to a year. And I think this will still climb a little bit more as like 10 a day catches up, which I think catches up in the next couple of months. And you'll have like a realistic figure for my whole year of doing 10 a day. I could probably go back and figure it out, but
those figures are wild.
16,000 in selling costs. And then this year, I've done 21,379. That's my obviously gross. My fees have been 3.886 on that. Oh, that means the number I worked out is wrong somehow, which is interesting. But that's what I've done to the year so far. And my ASP, this is what I was talking about with the quality of goods I've had. This has gone up, like I'd say almost £10 already from last year. I don't know. Did you see what it was last year? Did anyone see? I can't remember.
Oh, I didn't even know. I wasn't looking.
Someone would have looked and seen my ASP. So that's gone up £10. And then if we take that and actually look at what actually came into my bank account, because obviously I haven't had my payment for this week. So I've had into my bank account 15,424 plus whatever I'm about to get my payout this week as. So tomorrow, which would be 2162. So we're looking at basically 17,500. And my cost of goods up until this point is 8,130. So I'll do the math quick for you. 17,500 minus 8,130 leaves me with 9,370 in terms of profit. But so far, just on not including nothing else, just pure fees and cost of goods. So, and then outside of that, obviously you've got everything else that's gone on. Like I've got a million other sections. I did this by looking at my my business bank account. I've got obviously a load of postage to Parcel to Go. I've done a load of work in here. So this is my new unit. I've spent a lot of money there. I'm happy to, spend as much as possible to get this done and finished to make it all good. And then hopefully don't have to spend too much more except for touching up here and there. I've had Wi-Fi. I've had rent for here. What else? Random Amazon things I bought. I had to order a new printer because I broke it the other day, and then I broke the new one a few days after. And then I used the old printer to fix the new printer because I still had the parts from the old one. So we put it together and we had something work again. But yeah, we've got loads of other stuff on that, and obviously we've got that included. So 7.5% on the turnover, which was 21, which again would be just under 2,000 something. So it'd be 1,000 something or something. But that's kind of where I'm at, and that's what my numbers have panned out to make. Right. Which honestly, I am thinking about it now. Obviously, I didn't include it when I was looking at them earlier. I didn't include the 2.1. I'm going to get paid basically tonight.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I feel like I'm in a good place compared to where I was at last year. If that makes sense.
I think if you compare anything to last year, you should always be like, even if it's a very small incremental, like positive or improvement. I think any as long as you're not staying the same or doing worse, I think that's you could be 0.5% higher up than you were last year. I would still take that as a win. Obviously, I could see you higher than that, but
oh no, wait, what? How have I just done that? Oh, okay. So it's basically just over 10K a month, which would put me at 120 to 130 right now, I think. And that's before going up. And I haven't changed anything in my business except realistically my relationships with sourcing. And then my profit margins probably look Not too far off, to be honest with you. I don't think they're crazy different. So yeah, that's me. Now, flex yours since you've gone.
I'm not flexing anything because, like I said, there are probably people that are doing infinitely better than I am. Do you want me to share my screen? And then if I give you some numbers to calculate, you might need to write, because I'm going to give you, so my average cost of postage is £2.38.
Okay.
But then you would have to times that by 883, and then keep that number separate, and then we can.
Okay,
£2.38
times,
and then times that by 883.
Okay.
Right, and then keep that number separate, and then we'll work it out as we go along at the end.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
So I am going to share screen, and so I don't know how to maneuver this to make it good. Is that okay for everybody to see?
It's a little bit. You're not like the actual. I don't know about everyone else, but the numbers are actually a little bit blurry in the top left. I don't even know how you would fix that. Does anyone else seeing them be blurry? Or is it just me? Like all of that, like isn't clear.
Oh, okay. I don't know why. Is it really bad? Can you not see it?
You can't really make out that. I mean, I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if you can zoom in slightly. Just zoom in on the page. It's fine. Zoom in, please, Kaylee. Almost says it's fine. Maybe it's because if I put you on big screen. Right. Oh, that's so much better.
Right. So what we'll do is we will ignore this number here, because I kind of started doing it. So the turning on the lights, I started doing it, but got lazy and didn't bother filling that in anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so we'll break it down. We've sourced 1,006. We've listed 1,180. We've sold on 883. Our average cost of goods is £9.23, and our average profit per item is £32. Average sale price is £32.50. I don't know why it says profit. So the average average sale price is £32.50. But our gross sales is 28,693.75. So what we would have to do there is we would have to remove the postage, so the number that you've just got.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done that?
So 28,000 minus 2,101. Yep. So I got 26,592 at the moment.
Right. Okay. And then I would remove item sourced 1,006 times. So make a new number of 1,006 times £9.23.
Okay. Right. Hold on a sec.
We'll have to do that in a different calculator.
26,592, and then
1,006 times £9.23. It should be like 9,293.
So 9,285.
Yeah. So that's the other number. So I would remove that from the 26,000.
285. So 26,592 minus 9,285.
Yeah.
17,7.
Right. Okay. And then I will stop the screen share there, and then just add in this one. Screen share this one, and this. So your actual eBay sales is higher than mine, but obviously I've got Vinted as well, so that kind of factors in. So also minus £3,653.97. Minus
3,600. And what's that? 63. 63.
So 3,653.97.
3,653.
Yeah.
So let me add £10 back on. So you got 13,653.
So obviously that is very like rough and not like obviously there's extra things that I have to. You got van fuel, you've got insurance, all these other things, wages and all that. But let's not like get too far into the weeds. So that's 13,000. What was it? Sorry.
13,653.
Yeah. That's the profit for this month. Obviously, there's some extra factors in there as well. But yeah,
what was mine? Mine ended up being 9 something, didn't it?
Yeah. So realistically, like, what was your what your gross was now. Oh, but I promote at 3.3 and you promote at 2.2. So there's that's a little bit extra. That's negligible again.
Yeah.
But, and then you've got to take into account that on Vinted, I'm not paying fees on a lot of my items, right? So
yeah. So this is what I was going to say. I paid, I guess the number I worked out again was not correct. But at first, I thought I paid like $6,000 in fees. I paid like, what did it say I paid? 3.8 or something like that. I'll go back. I don't want to check. 3.86. Which, mate, I'd be 3.86. I'd be 3.8K richer right now if I didn't sell on eBay, which is so interesting. And I don't consider it's a cost of doing business, right? Like you're paying the fee to work on the platform, but it goes back to whatever debate you want to say from before of, which platform we're talking about making more money on and what sells faster, like last week. And you look at that and you go, that, because before Vinted was like a game of, I don't need to do this, right? Like it doesn't, you're worried it's not going to perform as well, but I feel like there's so much evidence now to show it performs as well that it seems super worthwhile to get all that money back.
And I've done, so what was my eBay number was 19.6, right? And so then my overall number was 28.6. So I've actually done, what's that, 9K on Vinted on top of my eBay. So obviously your eBay's outperformed mine by a couple of thousand, but then obviously my Vinted's outperformed by 9,000. So your
Vinted's outperformed by nothing.
Yeah, it's
actually lies. I sold like 10 things on there, all for clearance price. I've made about £94. How about that?
No, I think it's very interesting, right? But obviously the profit on and this is the kicker as well, because people say, oh well, you don't have to pay fees on eBay, you don't have to do the on Vinted, you don't have to pay for the postage and all that. But I sell I price everything the same price, but I also take bigger offers on Vinted than I would on eBay to negate that, right? So it ends up, although I don't pay fees, I'm ultimately knocking a lot of it off for Vinted buyers anyway. So, for instance, if I've got an item up at £40 on eBay, I want that to be a £35 sale on eBay. But on Vinted, I'll offer that motherfucker out for £30, like take £10 off.
It's a cheap place.
Yeah, and you just get it gone, right? So that's where people. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of items that will have sold for full price on Vinted that I didn't have to offer out or whatever. But they are a little fewer than far between than the ones that I offer like hefty discounts to.
Yeah, like as you can see, I'm the best to ever do it on Vinted. So I obviously got a lot of experience on the platform. But the more I think about it, the more it becomes appealing. It just obviously it's extra steps, but yeah, I'm interested. I've been more interested than I've ever been, and coming into spring/summer, which is a bad time on eBay for the most part. You're gonna go into dresses and stuff, and obviously dress sales are one of the worst impacted things on eBay for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what that is, but it seems all the dress sales go over to Vinted. So coming into spring and summer with dresses and stuff like that, I'm very interested in getting all that cross-listed and, trying to make some money over there, to be honest with you.
I know that Kaylee badgered me last week for saying it, but there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't do both. There's a little extra admin, but I would imagine it's probably around an hour a day if you did it the way I did it. If you did it the way that Vinted people do it, then it would probably be an extra 3 hours work, right? But
if you want to go hardcore, yeah. Like
Kaylee's the exception based on the fact that Vinted outperforms eBay, and most people's eBay outperforms their Vinted. So there's slight exceptions there. That's why I told her not to bother.
Has Jess just changed her name?
I don't know, yeah, it might be a different account, but maybe so. That's why it needs to be on Vinted, man. Like 100%. I see a lot of it on there. I see a lot of it sell. It definitely needs to be on there.
Okay, Xander's asked an interesting question that we could get into. I don't know if we want to get.
I already know that we're very different on this because I know the hours. Based on
we worked out literally the other day, did we not?
Yeah.
But even still, and it's also how you view the hours, which is another thing. So we had a backup topic of in terms of if we ran out of time on this one, of which I think is going to have to be a whole separate thing now, which Hanley will love the sound of, which is like a work-life balancey type thing, and how many hours you spend, all this and that. The answer is quite a lot, Xander, to be honest with you. I think both easily over an average job, I think.
I mean, even yours was way, and this sounds disrespectful, it wasn't, but because I know that you're a lot smarter in the way that you work and stuff, but you still put an incredible amount of hours in, like based on just an average job, whatever. And then when I started to try and work out mine, I nearly cried because I was looking at it. And then it's not, and also it's not me either, right? So like Tash was putting in the hours as well. So like ultimately we're like, if you combine
both your jobs, right? Like it's both your thing. Like it's so.
Yeah. And I know the hours I put in, especially like, so for instance, if anybody doesn't know, and is not following me on Instagram, I've started an experiment where I wake up at 3:30 in the morning.
I think it's diabolically crazy, but that's just me.
So that's added
mine.
That's added extra hours to my day. And I actually messaged Jess this morning because she said, "Oh yeah, you've probably been up since 3:30." I was like, "Yeah, I have." And do you know what? It's actually a cheat code. I told you as well. Like I think it's a cheat code. Like
it's not a cheat code.
Do you know why for me it is? Do you know why for me it is?
Why?
Because I don't feel any different in terms of the amount of time slept. So when I was a bit more of a loser and I was gaming all the time and didn't do anything with my life, right? I used to run off 5 hours sleep, but I also did nothing in my day. So I could function off 5 hours sleep because I wasn't burning any energy. I was sat playing video games, right? And now I'm functioning every day, doing lots of things. There's a little bit of stress here and there. You're obviously physically moving around, doing all these other things when you're sourcing and all that. And even waking up at 3:30 and I go to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, similar times I was prior. Like I don't feel any right now. It's only been like 4 days. I don't feel any different. So if that for me is a cheat code, like getting 2 extra. No, I don't. 2 extra hours in a day. Like that to me is a cheat code.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel we did go through it. So obviously, I'm saying it's crazy, but like when we talked it out and logicked it out, it made sense. Like if it works out, and also if you really get it sorted, it will give you the opportunity to do so much more. You slept better than me anyway. Like even when you woke up at 5:30 in the morning, you slept better than me. And I'll be interested to see how it pans out with how you feel longer term, because it's a significant loss of sleep over time. Like it's big, and like you got to admit something's got to, if you want to improve or get more stuff done, something's got to give somewhere. So if that's what you choose, then it makes sense. And if you feel okay doing it, fantastic.
This is a temporary fix to a problem that is an ongoing long-term problem, and I have the long-term problem fixed here. Mm-hmm. But to get to that, I need everything else in my business in terms of the going up to 20. Once that's caught up in hopefully a month or so, when it starts to catch up and the sales are kicking in like they should be, like I have the fix for it then, and then I can go back to just waking up at 5 like a regular human.
Sorry, that just reminded me of a long time. Like you said, you're going to do an experiment this week that was different to none of everything else we talked about. You said you were going to go Vinted only.
So I haven't committed to that. So I've spoken to a few people, and the reason why I didn't commit to it was because so that was prior to the 3:30 wake up, right?
Yeah.
So this is where my brain is at the moment. I put on my story the other day, like my brain is in a million different places in terms of how I can manipulate time and function it perfectly for me, and how to be the most time efficient with it, right? So I've basically gone, right, I'm going to wake up at 3. So I was going to go full Vinted mode only, right? And then I was like, well, actually, if I wake up at 3:30, I can get a lot of the pictures and drafts done, which is the stuff that Tasha does. And then at 9 o'clock,
you both.
She can source and I can source, and that equates to both. And then over a 2-week period, if we can also add in extra pictures and drafts on other days as well, that should give us the backlog that I want of 5 days. And then from that moment on, then I can reduce the 3:30 to 5:30 and then move on with more Vinted, but still go into a few charity shops on a more casual basis than it has been recently. So a lot has shifted over the last couple of weeks, and a lot of it is just down to sourcing, because the difference between me and like 98% of, like me and Simon, for instance, like in terms of our sourcing day, like our sourcing days are very similar. Like it's usually you're there at the first shop at 9 a.m. and you're leaving the shop at 5 a.m. and then you're going home, and like that's Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday, like all the time. And then on top of that, I was then going home, eating food, doing vintage sniping, you know, all this other stuff as well. And I think that's where I've gone, actually in my head, I'm like, shit, I need to do something slightly different here to make it work better for me. Now that we go into the work at Smarter and Harder here, but we'll leave it for
Hanley's already starting.
Hanley, and one of the reasons why I wanted this topic was because I listened to Hanley and Sam's podcast around. I don't think it was work-life balance or Smarter or Harder. It was they were talking about their days and how it planned out and all this sorts of stuff. And I do agree with Hanley. If you look at uber successful people, their work-life balance is that their life is their work essentially. And this is something that I'm not going to name names, but there is another YouTuber that does a little bit of live here and there. And he said, one of the things he said was, I know YouTubers that do this all day, every day and don't have a life. And they do this job for life. Like they're doing it all day. And that is such a sort of weird way of looking at it, because if you enjoy your job to a point where you don't see it as detriment. If I was working as a cashier at Spa, or whatever, right? And I got up at 3:30 in the morning, started work, and then didn't finish until 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. I'm undoubtedly going to be depressed, miserable, and I did that job for a little while and not to those hours, and I hated my life, right? But if you fundamentally enjoy what you're doing every single day to the fullest of its full, is that so bad that you want to do it all the time?
I will hold my opinion.
Okay.
Until we actually see the thing, because obviously I've been reading about on this before, but my thing, I'll just save it. I'll save it. I'll leave it there. Because
I'm super. It's a topic that I love loads, because I have people in my family that ultimately look at me sometimes and go, "Fuck, this guy just doesn't shut up about it all the time." When I'm not doing it, I'm talking about it, right? And that's something that I think it's like, oh, you just want people to understand the way. At least for me, anyway, I want people to understand it.
And the thing is, now we've talked about that. Is that going to be the topic next week, or are we sticking with our?
I want to stick with the topic because it's something that in my head I want to do. So,
okay,
in 2 weeks' time, we're going to talk a lot about work-life balance and all of that sort of stuff, and schedules and how we're doing things. And in 2 weeks' time, I think it'll be a good point to hit back on, just based on the fact that I'll have been getting up at 3:30 for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I may have cancelled that. I've been up since 3:30 this morning. I'm ready to go. Whereas in 2 weeks' time, I might be going, I can't be arsed.
I think mine's changed as well, and I'm hoping I can get mine a bit more sorted, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, do you want to go? You're very excited for next week.
I'm super excited about this. I just wanted to answer a quick question, Kaylee. I would never go back to a 9 to 5 ever. But what I do believe, and I've said this a lot, is that if this all went to shit, right, and I lost everything, I would just go and work a dead-end job at McDonald's is fine. My daughter works at McDonald's, for the time being, it's a perfectly fine job. But I would just go back there, do it until I had enough money to restart the whole company. And you just start again. This is what I want to do. And if I fail and then come back and then start again, I think I would be much better. And so,
interesting. Would you want it to be that you're 100% set on this? It's not just running your own business.
Right now is the way that I think is the best way to garner money to do other things. And then if I could save more money doing this than I would do if I was working at McDonald's or just a normal regular job as a manager like I was before. I wasn't saving money there, and there was no sort of increase in. This is just the more I do, the more I make. That's kind of it.
That's interesting, because Tash asked the question earlier what our goals were. I don't know where it's gone. I think it was Tash, right? Here's a question: what's your main aim in life for doing eBay? Yours is obviously to get a van and live in a forest.
I have been this close this week to getting finance on an 80 grand motorhome and just fucking off from everything. I have been this close. I am.
It's so funny you're this close and then talking so passionately about everything else. You're like, I'm this close to ending it all, but I'm loving life. But I'll leave right now.
This is why my brain is incomprehensible. Honestly, I know a lot of people like they say this a little bit more jovially, but I would be super interested to have somebody else have my brain for a day and just because the chaos that's going on. I know everybody's got shit to deal with, right? But the chaos that goes in this brain every day is mental to me. I'm close to quitting everything and going living in the woods. I'm also wanting to build a multi-million-pound business. I'm also wanting to think of other things outside of eBay that I want to do. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do all these things, and in my head, I'm just going, just switching back and forth. I don't know what I want to do.
See, we're very calm, cool, and collected for the most part. I haven't got a million things going on. If anything, I have a lack of things going on for the most part, with no goals and no direct things I want to do. My goal so I've started a few businesses over time, and my goal has always been to find something that sticks. And because I like to follow my interest a lot, I want something to generate enough money to allow me to just go wherever I want to in life. And I don't know what that is. Like I've started a few businesses. Recently I got into golf a lot, and I just nosedive into it. And really, if it was up to me, I'd be doing it every day because that's what I do. Like when I get into something, I like to do it every day. So if I can establish a business, and I've tried with some other stuff, but this has stuck the best for me, that I can work on and get to a point where it funds my life as a cash flow business in terms of it takes care of bills generally, and then allows me to explore other things I'm interested in. And that's not just like fun. Like I'm not like, oh, like I want to go travel over here, do this and that. Obviously that's always a good goal to have, but generally it's to whatever my heart wants to do at that time or whatever I'm interested in. I hope to be able to explore that, and that's the kind of freedom I'm looking for from life generally. I don't have a massive monetary goal. I have an idea of what it would cost, but it's generally getting this business to a point where that supports my view of how I want to live my life, which is interesting. And as for working a 9 to 5,
nah. It depends what it is, right?
Like I always had, so my mum went on at me, but she's in the comments and you can tell her I did nothing for ages. I went to uni, I did some stuff. I messed around a bit. It started going well before COVID. COVID hit, fell off the face of the earth, did nothing. And she was like, you need to, she's been great. And she's like, you need to kind of do something. Like not like pushy way, but like, you know, you need to earn some money in life. You're gonna need to do something at some point. And in my head, I always have like a fallback now of if I need to do something, I will. Right? Like if I really need to and nothing works out the way I want it to, I feel like I can find a 9 to 5 job and do pretty well in it generally. Like even it might be a corporate thing, it might be something completely random. Even if I wanted to, if I really needed the money, I'm not against working as a barista or at McDonald's or anything. I don't care. Like I don't think it makes any difference if you need to get the money, and I don't care exactly what it is that I do. Like the money is the money at the end of the day, regardless of the job. So I'm not against doing any of that. My hope is to never have to do that because I enjoy doing this. But you know, we'll see how it pans out. Again, do you want to explain what you're excited about? I gave you the floor, and you just went off on a completely different topic.
Right. So something that's played massively on the weight on my shoulders of thought process over the last couple of weeks has been really deep looking at all of the things that can go wrong and all of the things that are good about business. And then obviously there's a thing called the SWOT analysis. They do it in big companies and stuff. And it's SWOT, and it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I thought it'd be quite fun next week to do like a sort of presentation stroke like community sort of like involvement. So Benji's gonna, I think he's already made it, but like there's a little thing that's got like all the strengths, mind map. There you go, mind map. So you got strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and we're going to run through, and we're going to be heavily involved in the chat. I know that's one thing that we're trying to get better at, like navigating. But what I wanted you to do, not homework, but if you fancied it, do yourself a SWOT like mind map of your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, and then come back next week, and then you can help us build one.
It's crazy to give out homework. That's so funny.
Homework. It's not
I'm
homework.
I'm the nice teacher. I'm not giving you any homework. I just want you to turn up to the lesson and have an
Yeah.
idea. Because that's what I'm.
Benji's going to be the guy that's got it on the screen, and he's going to type in all the words. We need to navigate what are our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. And I thought it would just be a good sort of interactive thought. And it's just something. And by the way, this is completely like the selfish. This is just for me. I want it.
Few people have gone, I've never heard it described as fun. And then kind of like, fun. Is that what we're calling this?
I've never. This is the thing, right? I don't know. I think this would help multiple people, but I also think that from a selfish perspective, it's going to help me, and that's what I want from this because I'm selfish.
Next week.
So next week we want a written list, and we're going to go through it. We're going to run through it. I'm going to do the homework, so I've written a few down already, and I think it would be super interesting.
I think it will be interesting because I'm so interested in people come up with completely different things.
I think a lot of them will be similar, right? But because the business is so sort of like small and condensed compared to a lot of other businesses. But I know, like, for instance, Andrew in his job, like I reckon his mind would work differently compared to like someone like me. Like he might be looking at way bigger things or like more like really niche things than I might do. I might just be like overall statement. And he might be like, well, actually, if this happens, this could be a threat or whatever. And it could be like way in the weeds or whatever.
Crisis management, so you never know what.
Exactly. So I think it would be super interesting. And I know Andrew's dog is not going to eat the homework. And Andrew's going to come and bring an absolute banger of a presentation for us next week.
Why not go further and do what the hell is pestle?
I'm not going to lie to you, Sophie. I don't know what a pestle is.
What is pestle? I'm looking it up.
If we can get the anagram, is it anagram? Is that what you call it?
Analysis.
I don't know what it is.
Pestle studies the key external factors: political, economic, sociological, technological, legal, and environmental. I think I'd rather kill myself. Like I'm doing this for Chris anyway. If I did that, I'd rather kill myself. I'm not interested. And on that note, I think I'll bring this to a close.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming. I hope we found it interesting. Obviously, we'll get to the other topics. And again, if you do have anything interesting, we've got like a list of things that we want to cover over ages. But if you've got anything you think's really interesting, maybe not a SWOT analysis.
No, it is.
Now to the intro. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Play outro. Outro, yeah. Not intro, outro.
Yeah, outro, baby.
Bye.